All right, back to the standard Stanley Cup. I wanted to say before I start this one, the comment was made a couple of times on the Boston-Vancouver that I didn't really talk about the Bruins enough. And part of that is that series, that final, was so personal to me. And really, it was a lot of it was Tim Thomas. There was some luck as well in that in Game 7 against Tampa. No penalties were called because Tampa's special teams in that series were fantastic. So immediately after that game, there were a lot of Tampa fans online and just fans in general online that said the game was rigged by the NHL not to have penalties so that Boston would win the game. So there's a lot of controversies about that. I will circle back to it. Certainly I will circle back to it. But let us continue tonight with the Kings. It was said by somebody not that long ago on one of these videos, one of my videos, where I was talking about the salary cap versus non-salary cap. And the comment was made, without the salary cap, you'd have teams just running to the Stanley Cup. This is about 10 years after the salary cap, and the Kings ran to the Stanley Cup. And I knew in the first round it was going to be ugly. Here's the reason. The Canucks won the President's Trophy in 2012. And yet, I knew they were not as good as they were in 2011. And while everybody was like, oh, we're going to run back to the finals, it's like, no, nuh-uh. And right off the bat, Jonathan Quick was unstoppable. This is why, to this day, I have Jonathan Quick as one of the best goaltenders in the league. This is not a fluke. This doesn't just happen. Because it's not the only time that he's gone on a nice run. This is his best run. These stats are some of the best stats ever put up by a Stanley Cup winning goaltender. Yes, Tim Thomas was a wall for Boston the year before. Quick was better. 1.41 goals against and a 946 save percentage. Those are numbers that are intimidating on any level in any era. They go through Vancouver in 5. I remember they were up 3-0, and immediately the conversation was, are the Canucks going to be the first President's Trophy winning team to get swept in the first round, to go out without a single win? And I was half convinced that was going to happen. I honestly thought that was going to happen. St. Louis in the second round gets swept. The Arizona Coyotes, then known as Phoenix, lose in 5. And in the finals, it's a 6-game series. But, as I remember it, LA was up 3-0, and then they had a wobble. And the Devils, going into Game 6, there was a feeling that maybe the choke was on. So Quick's stats are fantastic. You look at this team, and it's funny because we talk right now about how the Kings don't have a lot of offense. They didn't have a lot of offense then either. Kopitar's their top point producer at 76, then Williams with 59, Brown with 54, and Richards with 44. It's ahead of Boston from the year before, where their two top point producers both had 62 points. But the depth isn't there. Doughty's got 36, Carter with 34. He had 9 points in 16 games after joining LA. He came over from Columbus, signed a big money deal in Columbus, and everybody was excited in Columbus. Carter seemed to be excited to be in Columbus. He was in LA not too long after that. Willie Mitchell with 24 points, and Jarrett Stoll had 21. So, of course, you look at this team and you see Scandal took out Mike Richards. Scandal took out Jarrett Stoll's career as well. Mitchell ends up getting moved to Florida and was broken down at that point. I think that was his last fully healthy season, if he was fully healthy. Mitchell was a Warrior, one of my favorite Canucks of all time, and I was glad to see him get a Stanley Cup ring. Honestly, very glad to see him get it. Justin Williams, 59 points in the regular season, 15 in the postseason in only 20 games. Kopitar with 20 points, Brown with 20 points. This is why Dustin Brown gets his money. Brown had 54 points in the regular season, 20 in the postseason, point a game. Dustin Brown raises his game in the playoffs. The problem is he has fallen off the charts so quickly the last couple of seasons. It's easy to forget this and just look at his cap hit now and say, oh, Brown was a horrible signing. What were they thinking? They were thinking we won a Stanley Cup. And then in 2014, they won another one. So the guys who were a big part of that got paid like Stanley Cup champions do. They get overpaid. It's just part of what happens. Or if you're with the Capitals, you get overpaid for regular season success, and then boom. Richards with 15 points in the postseason after 44 in the regular season. Carter with 13, again after 34 in the regular season. Dustin Penner, his second Stanley Cup ring. So Penner didn't last a whole lot of time in the NHL. Penner bounced around a little bit. Anaheim, Edmonton, LA. 2 cup rings isn't bad. That's not bad at all. And Trevor Lewis with 9 points comes in at 8th spot. So I have the top 8 scorers in the regular season, top 8 scorers in the playoffs. There was no offensive dynamo. This was just a decent team that didn't have to score a lot because their goalie was allowing 1.4 goals against per game. If you scored 2 on Jonathan Quick in those playoffs, you were having a fantastic game. And this is part of the reason why when the Kings are in a playoff spot or in and around a playoff spot, I tend to go with them. Is it logical? Probably not. Because this run now was, 5 years ago. But Quick is still capable of that when he's healthy. I became a Quick backer before he was a starter in LA. I could just see something in his game. And I said, I really hope he gets a shot. And he did. And it was kind of like pulling teeth for LA to give him a shot. It reminds me of Tim Thomas in Boston, where he kind of had to just prove himself. The team kept bringing guys in, and then eventually Quick got his shot, and when he got his shot, he took it, much like Thomas in Boston. It was likely, in my mind, it was the most dominant playoff performance I've ever seen outside of like the Oilers in the 80s. This was just dominance. From start to finish, LA was on a mission. They would do anything to accomplish it, and they did. And I still see with the LA Kings, while I see a team that needs more mobility, I still see the danger of them winning another Stanley Cup. I can still see them doing it. I'm not saying that they will, but they could, and then if they win another Stanley Cup, they'll get that whole dynasty tag potentially thrown on them too. Conn Smythe, I wrote it on the board, but really I'm not sure why, because there really was no doubt in anyone's mind that Jonathan Quick was the best player in the playoffs that year. He might have been the best player in any year. I mean, even Patrick Waugh, as great as he was in 93 and 86 and with the Avalanche, nobody in my mind did anything like Jonathan Quick did that year. Let me know in the comment section below why I'm wrong, why Quick wasn't the best of all time, in my time. Just go in my time in the playoffs. And hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And let me know your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.